Hebrews 11, verse 22 reads, By faith Joseph, when his end was near, spoke about the exodus of Israelites from Egypt and gave instructions about his bones. The lessons of faith that we learned from Isaac and Jacob concerning the future were more personal in nature. Their faith related directly to themselves, their children, and their immediate descendants. Joseph's lessons of faith concerning the future is more broad based and far reaching. Joseph's faith looked forward over 400 years to God's fulfillment of the next stage in his plan for his people. Spoke means to remember, to make mention of, to call something to mind. Of course, that raises the question, how could Joseph remember something that would not even happen for another 400 years? The answer is this. Joseph was remembering what God had spoken to his great grandfather Abraham so many years before. God told Abraham back in Genesis 15, Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated 400 years. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterwards they will come out with great possession in the fourth generation. Your descendants will come back here. Genesis 15, 13, and 16. So, as Joseph neared the end of his life, he gathered his brothers together and he reminded them of God's greater plan. He told them in Genesis 50:24, I am about to die, but God will surely come to your aid and take you up out of this land to the land he promised an oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Genesis 50:24. Joseph believed God's promise and he spoke to his brothers about the Exodus 400 years before it actually happened. Hebrews 11:22, Joseph gave instructions about his bones. It's interesting to contrast Joseph with Jacob. When Joseph's father was dying, Jacob instructed his son to bring him back to Canaan right after he died and bury him in the cave where Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah were buried. And they did just that. Genesis 50, 4 to 14. But when Joseph was dying, he was so confident that God would fulfill his larger plan that he did not even bother to ask about being buried in Canaan right after he died. Instead, you can take my bones with you. Then, when God delivers you from Egypt in 400 years, like Joseph, we also need to keep the big picture in mind. God's plan includes you and your life, but it's so much bigger than just you and your life. And when you see a world gone crazy and it looks as if everything is falling apart around you, you need to remember that God is still in control and you need to trust God to fulfill his plan. Nothing can change or thwart God's will and plan. Job 42 verse 1 in the Message version reads, I'm convinced you can do anything and everything. Nothing and no one can upset your plans. Do you tend to worry about the future? Do you tend to despair over the worsening conditions of the world? God says, don't worry. Trust God to fulfill his larger purpose and plan. Corrie ten Boom once said, never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. Open the door of tomorrow by the handle of faith. Be blessed.